I'm not a lawyer, but day 105 of the YSL trial was full of surprises from beginning to end. It's a ride, so go get your snacks together. So as expected from last week, John Melnick was first up to testify. If you recall, Melnick was Kenneth Copeland's original attorney before Melnick had Caleb Bumpus stand in for him because he was on vacation. And Melnick has previously said that the state was well aware that he was Kenneth Copeland's attorney, but they still chose to go to Kenneth Copeland directly about testifying in this case instead of going through his attorney, John Melnick. So that's what Melnick is in court to testify about. And he references emails that he sent the day he found out Copeland was being called to testify, as well as some emails that date back to March of 2023, which he says shows that the state was well aware that he was Kenneth Copeland's attorney. Brian Steele is up first to ask some questions.
Did you ever have conversations with Ms. Love, who is seated to your left?
Yes.
About representing Mr. Copeland as a witness in this trial?
Yes.
Did you do anything to separate yourself from that representation?
No. Right. I recognize this. This is an email I sent to Ms. Love, Ms. Hilton from the DA's office, yourself and Mr. Shart, dated June the 6th, 2024 at 4:31 p.m. Says, good afternoon. All it has come to my attention that the Fulton County District Attorney's Office has questioned my client, Kenneth Copeland, without my knowledge or consent. Please be advised that my client does not wish to speak with any member of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, nor any law enforcement officer from this point forward. My client will assert his privilege under the Fifth Amendment tomorrow and will not testify. Thank you, John Melnick. So I was not aware of any any offer of immunity to Mr. Copeland at that time. June 6th, 2024, 4:57 p.m. I hope good as addressed to me. Good afternoon. I hope all is well. In our conversations with Mr. Copeland, he advised that you were not his attorney and he had not spoken with you. However, if you are asserting that you are his attorney, we will cease communication, but your client is under subpoena and is expected to be here at 8:30 a.m. And then it's from Ms. Hilton. As I did respond at 5:47 p.m. I have been Mr. Copeland's attorney. He tells me that he repeatedly told you that when you were questioning him. It's dated June 7th, 2024, 11:52 a.m. It's from me to Ms. Hilton and Ms. Love. First sentence says, here is a communication between myself and Ms. Love, which pertains directly to the YSL case. And it's a forwarded message dated March the 3rd of 2023.
All right. And you're forwarding that in June of 2024 to say, see, you knew at some point I was representing him. Okay.
That's correct, Judge. It's an email that I also sent on June the 7th, 2024 at 11:54 a.m. To Ms. Hilton and Ms. Love. It was a forwarded message where I got a message from Peter Herzog, Assistant DA in the Fulton DA's office, asking me to contact him in reference to Kenneth Copeland. What Mr. Copeland did on June 7th of 2024, where he asserted his Fifth Amendment privilege, was entirely his decision. I have absolutely no agenda in this case whatsoever.
Next up is Max Shart, and he confirmed something that the state has been alluding to since Kenneth Copeland testified, which is that the defense attorneys are the ones who reached out to Melnick after they learned Kenneth Copeland would be testifying. And Max Shart and John Melnick both say there is nothing wrong with that.
And how did you find out about the state's plans to call your witness to the stand?
I believe you called me.
Could you say it again?
You called me.
You being
Yes.
Max Shart?
Yes.
In that conversation, did I ever ask you to do anything on behalf of myself or Mr. Steele or our clients?
Absolutely not.
Did I ever ask you to stop Mr. Copeland from testifying?
Absolutely not.
As a lawyer, is it appropriate to contact another lawyer about their client?
Objection, Your Honor, as to this witness being qualified to speak about what are in the ethics.
I would hope that every lawyer in the state of Georgia is qualified to speak on what we're expected to do under our code of ethics. I'm going to overrule that.
That's Law School 101.
And is that what I did on Thursday, June 6, 2024?
Yes.
Attorney Love is up next with cross-examination of John Melnick, and according to her, Melnick told members of the district attorney's office that he did not represent Kenneth Copeland anymore, and that is why they didn't reach out to him. She also notes that the conversations he did have about representing Kenneth Copeland all happened prior to the indictment of this case, when there was still a chance that Copeland could have been a co-defendant. So her point is, John Melnick was representing Kenneth Copeland as a potential defendant in this case, but never as a witness in this case, according to her.
I'm going to be a little bit brief, and I'm going to clarify some things.
You know what? I'll take the stand.
Do you recall at any time representing to any member of the district attorney's office in 2023 that Mr. Copeland had not paid you for your services?
No.
Do you recall telling a member of the district attorney's office that you were not representing Mr. Copeland on his criminal charges because he had not paid you? I'm just asking if you remember. If you don't, that's fine.
I don't.
And when Mr. Sharp called you, what was it? What did he say to you exactly?
He said that Mr. Copeland was being called as a witness the next day. He just said that the state's been speaking to Mr. Copeland.
Do you recall telling Mr. Abadi
The name she just said is Mr. Abadi, and he's another attorney from the district attorney's office. He actually gets called up to testify.
that you were not representing Mr. Copeland beyond the criminal case?
No.
What is your recollection of what it was that you said to Mr. Abadi or anyone else regarding your representation of Kenneth Copeland beyond his criminal charge?
I don't really have any independent recollection of anything.
How are you then able to say that you spoke with members of the state and told them that you represented Kenneth Copeland in his capacity as a witness in this trial?
Because I had specific conversations with Don Geary about this case and about Mr. Geary's desire to use Mr. Copeland as a witness.
Am I correct that that was pre-indictment?
Yes.
There was at least a prospect that Mr. Copeland would be a defendant and not only a witness?
That's correct.
So apart from the conversation you had with Don Geary pre-indictment, do you have any recollection of conversations that you had with members of the district attorney's office regarding your representation of Kenneth Copeland as a witness in the current case?
Ms. Love, everybody in your office knew that I was representing Kenneth Copeland. I said that to you, okay?
As your memory.
Yes.
Where was this? Is it on the phone?
Yes.
All right, y'all, we've been at this for over an hour and it's really not particularly relevant anyway, so let's wrap things up.
I feel that the motion and the order that was granted to Mr. Copeland did not protect him very much at all. I would have demanded that he be given immunity from all state level prosecutions as a result of any action he may have had involved with any other individual in this case. And I would have seen if we could have included the feds in that as well.
We're done with this, right? Everybody satisfied? My point in all of this was just so that Mr. Melnick could feel like he'd cleared his name.
After the first issue is dealt with, the judge moves on to the ex parte transcript and what is alleged to be missing parts of it. Doug Weinstein is up first.
Omitted parts of the transcript. Yeah, that's what the next topic's going to be. Yes. Are we going to be hearing from somebody over Zoom?
I just have a brief TikTok that I need to play.
Really?
It's very brief.
Okay.
TikTok coming in as evidence.
Well, this is part of the proffer, so it's your choice. I can do it or I cannot do it.
I
Your
have
Honor.
no idea what it's going to be.
This will be a TikTok of Mr. Copeland speaking to Miss Bumpus, where
Okay.
Mr. Copeland acknowledges that what is in the transcript the transcript is not complete from the June the 10th meeting.
Did Mr. Copeland read the transcript?
I don't know what Mr. Copeland has read or not.
It shows Ms. Bumpus talking to Mr. Copeland.
Believe it or not, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Copeland says, whatever. I mean, I don't care. Play it.
You can take it for what it's worth.
By the way, this is the TikTok he's talking about.
Mooney, is the transcript complete? You say no?
You know that.
And then Weinstein goes into why he believes parts of the transcript are missing.
It is my understanding, based on my conversations with Ms. Bumpus, that the transcript of the June the 10th, 2024 ex parte meeting, I have no basis to believe that that transcript is incomplete for when Judge Glanville was in the room. But there was a portion of that morning, a significant portion of that morning, based on my understanding, where it was Ms. Hilton was in the room, Mr. Copeland was in the room, Ms. Bumpus was in the room. I get my information from Ms. Bumpus. At some point, Ms. Hilton, Mr. Copeland, and Ms. Bumpus were in that room discussing things amongst themselves. My understanding is that Mr. Copeland relayed information regarding the murder of Donovan Thomas and perhaps some other information that Ms. Bumpus indicated would be Brady material. And so I just want to put that on the record that this happened.
Okay, so you can't put that on the record
Well,
that it happened. You can put it on the record that Ms. Bumpus told you it happened.
Well, Ms.
Is that
Bumpus-
what you're saying?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I want to hear from Ms. Bumpus if that's the case.
Okay. She's here. I'd like to call her to the stand and we can hear her testimony about what took place on June the 10th, 2024 during the course of that ex parte that was not recorded in the transcript.
All right, let's hear it. Ms. Bumpus, come on up.
So Attorney Kayla Bumpus is called to the stand.
So have you read the transcript from the June 10th ex parte meeting?
Yes.
And was the ex parte transcript that you read a complete recording of absolutely everything that took place in chambers that morning?
No.
When there was a portion of that meeting that was not recorded on transcript, who was in the room?
Myself, Mr. Copeland, and Simone Hilton. We had been meeting for a really long time, and I needed to go to the bathroom because I was stressed out. And
Okay.
when I went outside in the hallway, Simone was outside in the hallway.
Could you please describe the exchange you had with Ms. Hilton in the hallway?
So she asked me, I think I get what you're saying. I think I get what what you guys are trying to say. And if he's trying to do what I think he's trying to do, then that's not going to work. And I said, I don't know what you're referring to, but I guess we can come back in and you could talk to him about it. We go back in the chambers. Well, Mr. Copeland had then went to the restroom. So it was just me and Ms. Hilton in chambers. And then they bring him back in.
Did you and Ms. Hilton have any further conversation in the chambers?
No. And then everybody comes back in.
Okay, who is everybody?
The judge, Mr. Copeland, the 4 deputies, the 2 investigators from the state.
Is the court reporter in the chambers?
Yes.
When all of these people are in the chambers, what happens next?
Simone starts talking to Mr. Copeland about what we talked about in the hallway. I don't remember what she said at the beginning because then she says, wait, Judge, can you step out?
At that point, does the judge step out?
Yes. I don't remember if the court reporter stepped out, but I know she stopped taking down what we were talking about. Simone starts to talk to Mr. Copeland about, she reiterated the fact that pretty much she wanted him to testify. She didn't know what he was going to say, but there was one thing that they know that he didn't do that she would not allow him to testify to. First, Mr. Copeland said, I can claim all of this. I can claim all of this. I might as well just say I did all of this. And she said, but we know you didn't do all of this. And specifically, we know you did not kill Donovan Thomas. And I will not allow you to get on the stand and say that you killed Donovan Thomas.
Did she say anything else with respect to that?
I was explaining to Mr. Copeland about independent evidence because she said if she had any independent evidence to prove that he was lying about anything, she would just use his statement to impeach him. But she would not necessarily press charges against him for perjury. But she said that if he said this thing, this one particular thing, which was the unaliving of Donovan Thomas, that she may move forward with perjury. And Mr. Copeland says, well, it's not just about me knowing who killed him, but it's about, I know more about that infinity, and I know something about somebody who's not even on trial.
Do I understand your testimony to be that Ms. Hilton said that she would prosecute him if he lied about the killing of Donovan Thomas, but she would not prosecute him if he lied about other things?
Yes.
Let's go back to the infinity.
You just say, I know something about the infinity that y'all don't know.
How did Ms. Hilton respond to that?
She really didn't say anything about it. She just kept moving forward with explaining to him she wasn't going to go for that lie about the unaliving of Donovan Thomas, but whatever else you lie about, I'll just use it as impeachment. They gave me a second to talk to Mr. Copeland, and then that was the end.
Brian Steele is up next, and he talks about the deputies turning off their body-worn cameras once they entered the judge's chambers for the ex parte.
Counselor, was there a time in your presence that you heard someone give a direction for the sheriff deputies to shut off their body-worn cameras?
Absolutely.
Do you know who gave that direction?
Deputy Brown. That was the first thing he said when the deputies brought Mr. Copeland in.
Did Mr. Copeland in any way take responsibility for that killing that day to Ms. Hilton?
Pretty much, he just said, you don't know what I did or didn't do.
And that was said to the prosecutor about the killing of Donovan Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
Any other defense attorney have questions for Ms. Bumpus?
Good morning, Ms. Bumpus. How did this meeting come about?
When I got here, the courtroom was closed. There was no one here. And so I contacted Mr. Chamberlain. And he came down. He told me to call him when I got in the courthouse. So I called him when I got in the courthouse, and I was right here. And he came down and got me, took me upstairs.
Were you ever told why you were going upstairs?
I was never told why I was going upstairs, but once I got upstairs, I thought I was upstairs because that was the only place I could talk to Mr. Copeland.
At what point did you realize that you were being made part of an ex parte meeting?
When Brian got up there and said it.
When what? I'm sorry.
Brian.
Who's Brian?
Attorney Steele.
Okay.
Got up, and that was the first time I really realized that anything had happened, because I had been sitting there and I did not realize what was happening. But it was never a time where they said, oh, we're about to meet. They literally just start talking. The first time I realized what had happened was when Mr. Steele made his motion in court.
So Kayla Bumpus is saying she didn't even realize that she was a part of an ex parte in that moment, but Judge Whitaker ain't having it.
Okay, so you were in chambers with Judge Glanville and Miss Hilton. And Miss Love, correct?
What I'm saying is...
you answer the question that I am asking you. You were in chambers with Miss Love and the judge and a court reporter, and y'all had conversations, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were aware prior to that morning that this case was being tried, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were aware that Miss Love was a member of the prosecution team, right?
Yes.
And that Judge Glanville was the presiding judge at the time.
Yes.
And that there were defense attorneys on the other side of the case, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you went into the meeting, you could see that there were no defense attorneys present, right?
No, but what I'm saying is, I didn't know I was going into a meeting.
Ma'am, I understand. Answer the question I asked you. You could see at that point in time that there were no defense attorneys present in the chambers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So at that point in time, you knew this is a meeting with the prosecution and the judge and no defense attorneys, right?
What I'm saying is...
Ma'am, answer the question I am asking you.
I didn't realize it was a meeting.
Okay. So at the point when people started talking, let's call it a meeting at that point in time. Okay. Ms. Love, do you have questions for Ms. Bumpus?
These sides be sending me.
Did Kenneth Copeland ever say to Simone Hilton, I killed Nut?
No.
Did Kenneth Copeland ever say to Simone Hilton, I killed Donovan Thomas?
No.
Did Kenneth Copeland ever say that he killed anybody to Simone Hilton?
No.
Did he say any of those three things in Simone Hilton's presence in hearing, to your knowledge?
Can I answer that with a non-yes or no question, Judge?
With a what?
With an explanation, because he didn't say yes, or he did not say I killed, but he said, you cannot tell me what I did or did not do.
Okay. That's the extent that he said?
Yes.
Okay.
I said I don't remember his words verbatim,
Right.
but I was there, and he said, I can claim all of this. I can take all of this. He said it over and over. He said it various ways. He changed the way he said it. The whole conversation was about Donovan Thomas's unaliving.
So the conversation finishes. How does everybody get back in the room? And how is it that y'all go back on the record? Give me the details of that.
We just finished the off the record conversation, and Simone just says everybody can come back in.
So show me where in the transcript y'all come back from the restroom break.
I don't know how to find that.
Okay, so the restroom break y'all take, but it isn't reflected.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so when is it that you actually reviewed and read this transcript?
I really don't know, but somewhere.
Sometime in late June?
Yeah, somewhere after 6/12.
Okay. And we all in this room know this to be the case, but you are an attorney licensed and barred to practice in Georgia, right?
Yes.
Okay. And as such, you have a duty of candor to the court?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Is there any point in time after you read this transcript and thought to yourself, wow, that really doesn't include everything, that you brought it to this court's attention that the transcript was incomplete?
This court, well, there really was no court's attention to bring it to, because after all of that happened, it's been on recess for so long.
So you've been in court when we've been in session for the last week or two, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I was presiding at that point in time, right?
Yes.
Did you at any point bring to my attention that you believed as an officer of the court and a participant in this ex parte meeting that the transcript did not accurately reflect what occurred in that meeting?
Well, Your Honor, I did not bring it to your attention, and I honestly still would not, as an attorney, if I can answer this as an attorney, I believe that there is some value in off-the-record conversations for specific things, and it has always been my position, even in speaking with members of the defense, that as far as anything minus the off-the-record conversation, that the transcript is complete.
Okay. All right. So what is your answer then to my question?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, because of what I kind of just said, I don't
Okay.
believe that it was incomplete per se,
Okay.
minus the off-the-record conversation, but there are a lot of off-the-record conversations that are had that are not included in transcripts, and that's
True.
not unusual to me.
Okay. All right. So you don't actually believe it's inaccurate then?
No, I just think it's missing the off-the-record conversation. I'm not
Okay.
missing, I just think that the defense did not have knowledge of the off-the-record conversation.
Okay.
Not that it's missing from the transcript per se.
Because it was officially off the record. Is that what you mean?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. And did you ever, if it in fact occurred, did you ever object to it being off the record?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So at some point you brought it to the defense attorney's attention? Is that how you decided to deal with it?
I had a conversation with the defense attorney. I don't want to say I brought it to them, but we just had a conversation about what happened.
All right. Ms. Love, do you have other questions for Ms. Bumpus?
Who specifically came up to you and asked you about the meeting in chambers?
There were multiple attorneys that specifically talked to me at one time.
Would you please apprise the court of the names of those multiple attorneys?
Excuse me, objection, Your Honor.
I think it's quite relevant. Who knew what and when, as it relates to what was said during the meeting?
Okay, well, I don't know if it's relevant who revealed it, who revealed that a meeting occurred. Ms. Bumpus has said that essentially, if I understand you correctly, that at some point during the day, immediately following the meeting, the day of the meeting, you had a conversation with some defense attorney or defense attorneys, and we can sort out who, where you relayed to them everything you knew and everything you recalled about what went on in the meeting, including the off the record conversations, right?
Yes.
Okay. You can figure out who that is now.
Which attorneys by name first came up to you and asked you about the meeting?
I don't recall everybody who was there.
Who do you recall?
I recall Attorney Steele and Attorney Adams. I can't remember who was the other person.
When Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams came up to you an hour after the meeting and asked you about it, how many lawyers were there?
3, I think.
Okay. Do you recall seeing Mr. Sharp? Just throwing out names.
At some point.
Okay. So Mr. Sharp, Mr. Steele, and Mr. Adams, within an hour, is that accurate, of the meeting, came to you and talked to you about what happened in the meeting?
I would say yes.
Okay. Other than Mr. Sharp, anybody else you remember?
No.
Does anybody from the defense side have follow-up questions for Ms. Bumpus?
In your cross-examination, you said, quote, she says she is not going to prosecute him for anything other than that one thing, unquote. What is that one thing?
I can't answer that. I can only assume it would be the unaliving of Donovan Thomas, but those are the words that she chose to use.
When you say unaliving of Donovan Thomas, what are you referring to?
I get him being killed.
What was the subject matter being referred to when you said, I can claim all of this, I can take all of this?
Donovan Thomas's murder.
Okay.
Just so I am clear on this, you're saying that are you saying that in the off the record conversation that you, Mr. Copeland, and Ms. Hilton had, that Ms. Hilton told Mr. Copeland that the one thing she would prosecute him for perjury for was if he got on the stand and said that he, Mr. Copeland, was the one who killed Mr. Donovan Thomas?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. And that she would prosecute him for perjury if he said that.
I don't know if she exactly said would, but she was comparing it to things that she wouldn't.
Okay. All right.
So I guess more of a highly possible situation.
That would be the one thing that
Yes,
could
Judge.
get him in criminal
Yes, Judge.
perjury type trouble. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was a lot, and it was only what happened before lunch. This is only half the day. But in case you are trying to figure out why this all matters, here is Attorney Love asking the judge the same question right before lunch.
What exactly are we addressing? So I can have.
I mean, the defense maintains that there was an unrecorded portion of this ex parte where Brady information was revealed to Ms. Hilton that Ms. Hilton did not then share. So that's our topic.
And then Doug Weinstein highlights even more issues he has after Caleb Bumpus's testimony, specifically as it relates to Brady material that was not disclosed. And then Attorney Love gives her response to that.
Okay, what else?
Specifically when she said that the state would not prosecute Mr. Copeland for lying except for that one thing, which she said was the murder of Donovan Thomas.
Based on the parameters that the court set forth, my understanding was that anything that is alleged to have been said by Ms. Hilton in that regard does not impact whether or not Brady material was disclosed. My position would be that given that defense attorneys came to Ms. Bumpus within an hour of the meeting before court went back in session and asked her, so they had information, they had, I assume, the content of whatever it is that they are alleging took place. And then Ms. Bumpus, based on what I heard her say, filled in the blanks. I'm using my words, not hers. My understanding of what Brady is that it is information that is not available to them by any other reasonable means. And they have, obviously, they had someone telling them something about what was going on. So it's not a Brady violation if they had access to it.
The short version is that Attorney Love is saying since the defense got the Brady information, regardless of how or who they got it from, as long as they got it, she says that means it wasn't a Brady violation. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but girl, I guess. And then Weinstein adds more to what he says was Brady information in that ex parte, and he focuses on Kenneth Copeland allegedly saying, quote, I can claim all of this in regards to the of Donovan Thomas. And Attorney Love argues the statement wasn't actually Brady, and Kenneth Copeland was speaking hypothetically.
In the off-the-record meeting where Mr. Copeland...
The alleged off-the-record meeting.
The alleged off-the-record meeting, where Mr. Copeland allegedly said, I can claim all of this, I can take all of this over and over again, and the all of this was regarding the unliving, the murder of Donovan Thomas. I would submit that I would submit that Mr. Copeland allegedly saying, I can claim all of this, I can take all of this would also be Brady material.
I asked Ms. Bumpus specifically what was asked right before. What she said, she understood it to mean Donovan Thomas. But I can claim all of this. My position is that it's not Brady. I can say I can claim it all too. But a hypothetical, I can. What you can do is not saying something that is.
All right, I understand your argument. So just for clarification, you said I had set parameters as to what is and isn't Brady, and
No.
I haven't set any parameters as to what is and isn't Brady. Brady is what Brady is.
I don't think it would amount to Brady, but if it did, I can put up a witness about it. I just didn't think that it was necessary.
So Attorney Love calls up Investigator Long to the stand to dispute Caleb Bumpus's version of what happened at that ex parte, specifically to either confirm or deny if the off-the-record meeting that Kayla talked about actually happened and what exactly was said if it did happen. Investigator Long works at the district attorney's office, and he was with Ms. Hilton the day of that meeting. It's also worth noting that Investigator Long was in the courtroom during Caleb Bumpus's testimony, so he was at the ex parte, and he also heard Kayla testify about what happened at that ex parte.
State calls Deputy Chief Investigator Antonio Long.
All right.
Are you all required to remain with us at all times during those types of meetings?
Yes.
Did you remain with Ms. Hilton during the entire time that she remained in chambers?
I remained with her the entire time she was with Ms. Copeland. There was a conversation where Ms. Hilton spoke with Ms. Bumpus
in Copeland before the judge and the court reporter went back on the record.
And Mr. Copeland's in there at that point in
Mr.
time?
Copeland was in there.
All right, and say, what is the substance of that?
It was Ms. Hilton explaining to Mr. Copeland that if he did get on the stand and take credit or try to take credit for something he didn't do, she would then seek prosecution for perjury.
And did she talk with any specificity about what crime or crimes that would include?
She did mention the Donovan Thomas case, and that if you got and claim something that he knows he didn't do, and we have proof that he didn't do, then she would prosecute for perjury.
Your recollection is that that conversation occurred off the record before the judge was in there?
Yes.
Does your memory align with what you heard Ms. Bumpus testify about regarding off-the-record conversations?
The restroom break, just the restroom break.
And what, if anything, did you hear Ms. Bumpus talk about that you have no memory of whatsoever, or that you can testify in your recollection did not happen?
The incident about the infinity, him claiming that I can claim all of this, the part about you coming back the second time, that's what stands out to me right now.
Max Shard is up on cross.
Ms. Hilton specifically referred to getting on the stand and claiming responsibility for the Donovan Thomas situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, if he took credit for something he didn't do, yes.
But specifically, it was stated the Donovan Thomas situation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that was out of Ms. Hilton's mouth?
Yes.
Okay, so Ms. Hilton specifically during the off-the-record portion referenced Mr. Copeland taking credit or taking responsibility for the killing of Donovan Thomas.
Yeah, it didn't come exactly like that, but yes, it just, yes.
Following Investigator Long's testimony, the judge asks everybody this.
Anything y'all want to suggest that this actually means?
From my perspective, we've had with the ex parte communications in themselves, I don't believe that there was a valid reason to initiate the meetings. It's the worst kept secret in this courtroom that John Melnick represents Kenneth Copeland. Worst kept secret. And they went behind Mr. Melnick's back and initiated conversations with Mr. Copeland. From our perspective, that was a knowing violation of Georgia Rule of Professional Responsibility 4.2. But in the motion to grant Mr. Copeland immunity, they specifically stated that a member of the defense team had contact with Mr. Copeland. It says Kenneth Copeland has been subpoenaed to testify in the above style case on Thursday, June 6, 2024. After an encounter with defense team members and members of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, Copeland stated to an investigator and to an attorney with the Office of the Fulton County District Attorney that Copeland may attempt to plead the fifth to avoid testifying against members of YSL. I can only speak for myself. I did not have any encounters with Mr. Copeland. I don't believe that any of my colleagues did. I don't believe any members of the defense team did. I don't believe that what's asserted in paragraph 11, to my knowledge, I don't believe it to be the truth. We can do something about this besides run to the bar. Mr. Copeland is given what I would say incorrect legal advice about what his exposure is for these allegations and his potential criminal liability. That is coercion that's trying to convince him to take the stand and plead so that the state can then impeach him with his prior inconsistent statements, presumably. The act of him taking the stand as a result of those ex parte communications has prejudiced, has harmed all of these young men in court here today. So those are all violations that have harmed these individuals. There has to be a remedy. The facts are there for you to consider disqualification of district attorneys in this case.
So that was Max Shard's summary on why the prosecutors in this case should be disqualified and why this case should result in a mistrial. Brian Steele comes up next and doubles down on why he says the prosecutors should be disqualified, but I'm only going to play a short clip from his argument.
I'm actually disqualified because it's just not, at some point, the message needs to be sent that this is not the state of Georgia and this is not our bar.
I will tell you that this court takes Brady violations very seriously. And I mean, everybody ought to, prosecutors ought to. And I am considering that right now. So rest assured that I am aware and have been aware that I have the authority if I choose to remove them.
Thank you.
So, all right.
Next, Attorney Love calls Deputy Abadi from the District Attorney's Office to the witness stand, and she calls him to testify about the time he was prosecuting Kenneth Copeland on some possession and reckless driving charges, and during a hearing on that case to determine the conditions for Kenneth Copeland's bond, Abadi says John Melnick expressed that he did not represent Kenneth Copeland in the YSL case. Abadi also notes that, coincidentally, Judge Whitaker was the presiding judge over that case.
Chief Deputy Abadi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. DA's office in Fulton County. I'm the chief deputy of the Major Crimes Division. So it was me, myself, Abigail Potter, who at the time was the trial division lawyer assigned to Judge Whitaker's courtroom. Judge Whitaker and Mr. Melnick, and I believe Ms. Rosser, the case manager who set up the Zoom link, was on the Zoom, and it was just a discussion as it related to the bond conditions for his possession of a firearm by a convicted felon case that was before Judge Whitaker, and the conditions that would be included in it. Mr. Melnick was all hot about the fact that I was on the call representing as a representative pretty much for you as a member of the team for this case, because he specifically said on more than one occasion that I'm not here about that case. I don't represent him on that case. The only case that I have before this judge that I represent Mr. Copeland on is the 22 SC case. He said it over and over again, and he kept making snide remarks as it related to you and the district attorney's office, and eventually me, to which I said, I finally interrupted him. I said, we're done with your used car salesman, stuff. And that's when the judge was kind enough to intervene and say, all right, whatever, we're here just for the 22 SC case. We understand you don't represent him in the YSL case because there's nothing to represent him on, was the gist in my recollection.
Did you speak with Mr. Melnick at any other time regarding his representation of Mr. Copeland as a witness in this case?
No, I try to avoid him as much as possible.
Attorney Love calls up another attorney from the DA's office. This attorney's name is Peter Hartzog, and he talks about a time that Kenneth Copeland was brought up in a case that he was investigating, and he reached out to John Melnick regarding it.
So I'm a senior assistant district attorney in the anti-corruption unit of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. There was an allegation made that involved Mr. Copeland. I reached out to Mr. Melnick to see, as per our usual in our unit, to speak with every witness. And I believe I asked him if Mr. Copeland wanted to talk about that specific matter.
Where and why did you seek to go through Mr. Melnick to get to Mr. Copeland?
Because if I remember correctly, he represented Mr. Copeland in that other matter.
Max Shardigan up on cross.
Okay, and you are building up a case?
Yes. I'm investigating a case, I'm not building up a case, I'm investigating a case.
And is Mr. Copeland the target of this case?
No.
Okay, so he is a witness.
Yes, he would have been a witness. I wouldn't represent someone I wouldn't speak with someone that was represented by counsel.
Okay.
On any case, or was recently represented by counsel.
Okay, so the reason that you called Mr. Melnick is because you would not speak ethically. Your code of ethics, you would not want to speak to someone who's represented, correct?
It's all of our code of ethics.
Correct. And you also would not want to speak to someone who was represented recently. Is that what you said?
I would reach out to the defense attorney prior to that, yes.
Yes. If you're wondering if what he just said seems to be in favor of the defense and not the state, yes.